Aloha mai kako e nā hoa makamaka mai ka lahiki a ka lākau. Velina nui me ke aloha. Malo nui no ke ako ko ana. No ka pono o ka lahui, no ka pono o ka aina, a no ka pono o ka wainu hoi. Ea he olelo no e ao e kalele ana I ke koi o ka vai. Pokole vele no. Ka'u I palahemo. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at today's Board of Water Supply monthly meeting. Today's Olelo no Eao is a short one. It is Ka'u at Palahemo. Palahemo is a pool near Kalai and Ka'u. Salt water is found under the fresh water, and any disturbance, like the dropping of a heavy stone, reverses the water so that the salt water rises on top. This is a great reminder as to the fragility of our freshwater supply.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before beginning today's meeting, I'd like to state that our board is dedicated to providing safe, dependable, and affordable water now and into the future. At this time, we'd like to share a brief recording with reminders on public participation, as well as virtual meeting regulations for board members as required by law.
Materials for this meeting under HRS Section 92-7.5 are accessible at boardofwatersupply.com/board meetings. The public may attend this meeting in person at the BWS Public Service Building, located at 630 South Baratania Street. The public may also view a live stream of today's meeting on our website at boardofwatersupply.com/live. We have been accepting written or oral testimony for today's meeting. Instructions and an online submittal form are available at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony. The deadline to submit advanced written testimony has passed. Testimony received by noon today have been distributed to the board members. We will continue to accept written testimony today through our online form. Oral testimony in person or remotely will be accepted during today's meeting. To facilitate as much in-person and remote testimony as reasonably possible during the time allotted, pre-registration and submittal of a written version of testimony at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony is strongly encouraged. To testify in person, please register using our online form or come to the Public Service Building at 630 South Baratania Street. We have a representative in the lobby to provide intake and further instructions. To request to testify remotely, please complete the online form at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony. Requesters will receive an email containing links and instructions to join the Zoom session. Testifiers will have 2 minutes to state their position. A timekeeper will alert testifiers when there is 1 minute remaining. Once the 2 minutes are up, please summarize to allow time for questions from the board. Then, make room for the next testifier. Board members attending any board meeting remotely must be visible to the public to be considered present and meet quorum guidelines. Board members participating remotely must also disclose their location and anyone present at their location during roll call. Meeting participants who are calling or video conferencing in, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If you have a question, comment, or wish to enter or second a motion on an action item, please unmute your microphone and identify yourself before continuing to speak. If you encounter technical issues during today's meeting, please use the Zoom chat to send a direct message to our support team. Their names are listed in the message to all participants. To open the chat window, please click on the text bubble icon on the Zoom toolbar.
Let's take a moment to take a roll call of the board members. When I call your name, please say aye, and if attending remotely, make the appropriate disclosures. Vice Chair Sproat.
I am zooming in today from my home office where I'm alone with the door closed, and it looks as cold in the boardroom as it is at my house. Aloha, everyone.
So, kapua. Board Member Andaya.
Hello, everyone. I'm here at home and I'm alone.
Board Member Jonathan Kanashiro.
Aye.
Board Member Gina Bano.
Aye.
And Board Member Ed Sniffen is excused this afternoon. Also in the room with us today are managers Ernie Lau.
Aloha.
Deputy Manager Erwin Kawata.
Present.
Board Secretary Joy Cruz Achu.
Here.
Manager Secretary Kim Kuai.
Here.
Information Specialists Stephen Nordstrom and Wayne Maria. Joining us by Zoom are Jeff Lau and Jessica Wong, both from the City and County Corporate Counsel Department. Okay, we have 2 items on our agenda today. Item number 1, approval of the minutes of the public hearing and regular meeting held on November 27th, 2023. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Can I entertain a motion?
A second?
All right, it's moved by John Conisher and second by Gino Bono. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Caposbro,
Aye.
Board Member Brian Ataya.
Aye.
Board Member Jonathan Conachero,
Aye.
Board Member Gino Bono,
Aye.
Chair Nale West.
Aye.
Chair motion passes with 5.
Thank you. Please note for the record. Okay, moving on to action item number 2. Joe, it's not too late. Adoption of resolution number 977, 2023, resolution of appreciation for Waterworks Controller Joseph Cooper. Chair recognizes Anila.
Thank you, Chair. I just read the resolution. Whereas Joseph Cooper joined the Board of Water Supply as its Waterworks Controller on December 2013 to manage the finance division that plans, directs, and controls the department's accounting, treasury, and fiscal services to ensure the economic sustainability of this semi-autonomous city agency. And he has recently notified the department of his retirement. Whereas over his 10-year career, Mr. Cooper worked to issue a total of $209.1 million in water system revenue bonds, refinance $143.6 million older bonds to a lower interest rate, resulting in a savings to our customers of about $11.2 million. Obtained $84.5 million in low interest loans from the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Loan Program to refinance outstanding bonds to save $6 million in interest, and led 2 BWS cost of service studies and rate making processes. The first of which adjusted the rate tiers to finance the operation and capital needs. And whereas Joe's financial acumen, skills, and experience have greatly benefited this agency as he has successfully implemented fiscal strategies and updated financial policies that has resulted in a AAA municipal bond ratings from both Fitch and Standard & Poor's, as well as clean financial audits. Whereas in his capacity as Waterworks Controller, Mr. Cooper oversaw the department's creation of a long-range financial plan to fund its 30-year infrastructure investment plan, which supports the BWS 30-year water master plan that will impact the BWS direction and operation for many years to come. Whereas Mr. Cooper's accomplishments, professionalism, integrity, and capable leadership have earned the respect of members of the board, department employees, his colleagues, and the community, resulting in additional recognition and honor for the board. Whereas Joseph Cooper's decades-long BWS career is a testament to his commitment to helping maintain a municipal water system that is safe, dependable, and affordable, as well as worthy of trust of the public for it serves. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Board of Water Supply, City and County of Honolulu, and that we do hereby express to Mr. Joseph Cooper our deep appreciation and gratitude for his dedicated service to this department. And be it further resolved that the members of this board extend to Joseph Cooper our sincere aloha and best wishes for continued success in all his future endeavors. And we're going to present the resolution to Mr. Cooper.
Any discussion? Well, I have a few things.
And I,
Joe, just on behalf of the board, just a huge mahalo for all of your hard work, for not only the cost savings, but for keeping the bond rating where it was. I know it's a team effort, but really, really important, especially in these days of increasing interest rates. So just appreciate all of your time and effort into that. And I'd just like to say that you're not off the hook just yet. I may have a call or two into you when we get into the next one, because this is really complicated stuff, and we appreciate the level of mental dexterity that you provided. So thanks so much.
Thank you very much for that honor.
And
Chair?
Chair, if you could, let me also say a few words.
Absolutely.
I just want to say thank you, Joe, for all your service to the Board of Water Supply and the community we serve. Joe's been really becoming so adept at the whole revenue bond sale process. That going from the POS all the way through the bond rating agency presentations and through an actual sale and closing on the bonds, you know, Joe has really taken it to a whole level, next level of expertise and become quite an artist at this process. I really appreciate that. Train your successors well in the next few weeks, so they'll have to learn really quickly. But you know, fortunately, we have Kaliko Lamke from the city who's very familiar with this process too. And the other thing I really appreciate about Joe is he's really looked at diversifying our tools for financing the Board of Water Supply, its capital program, including the application for the very first time to pursue a WIFIA loan from the US EPA. Joe, for how much is it going to be?
We're projecting it'll be 99 million.
$99 million. Another tool that we can use to help be able to accomplish what we need to do in our capital program, but be able to really spread the cost out to all the ratepayers over a longer period of time with greater flexibility. So, Joe, I really appreciate you doing that. I wish you the best, you and your family, on your future endeavors and moving on to a better life. But please don't be a stranger.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you,
It's
Joe.
really been an honor. Really, the passion and devotion for protecting our water resources is really important to me and my staff. And we really embrace that too, in your leadership and the board leadership too. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
A couple of hands up. Brian.
Yeah, hi, I hope you can hear me. Yeah, Joe, I just wanted to say, congratulations, you'll be sorely missed. I certainly appreciated, especially during my term as chair, having such really clear, I echo everything that's been said, your expertise on the bond issuance process, but also the reporting that you've provided, just extremely clear. It's fair, there's detail where you need it. You've always been able to answer all the questions. There's always been great to know where we were financially, exactly where we were financially, and you made that all possible. So I really appreciate that. Finances is a bedrock of any organization, modern day organization. So thanks for helping with that, and best wishes to you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Joe, it's such a pleasure to work together for the duration of my 2 terms. Your retirement is quite the reminder that I have been around perhaps for too long. And I think Ernie and Brian have already shared so much. So I'll just add that in many ways, I feel like our AAA bond rating is really a credit to your hard work. I have deeply appreciated your patience, your guidance, and your wise counsel, and I'll miss you. So best wishes in your well-deserved retirement. Not goodbye, but ahui ho.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So,
Okay.
second?
Okay, so it's moved by John, second by Jean. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Capostro,
Aye.
Board Member Brian Antaya,
Hi.
Board Member Jonathan Kanashiro,
Aye.
Board Member Gina Alvano,
Aye.
Chair Nale West.
Aye.
Chair motion passes with 5 votes.
Okay, please note for the record. Okay, moving on for items for information. Item number 1, update on the Board of Water Supply's response to potential impacts of Red Hill fuel contamination. Chair recognizes Deputy Erwin Kawata.
Thank you, Chair, members. For this month's update, I just wanted to start with the Navy's announcing on Friday that they've completed all of the gravity defueling So that's about 104.6 million gallons. Going forward, they just have the residual fuel left as well as the sludge. The residual fuel expected to finish in March of next year, 2024. The other remaining sludge and there's a small amount of residual fuel that's going to require removal of, taking the pipelines apart is going to take a little longer. With respect to the final closure plan, in terms of the update as to the use of the potential reuse, those are all pending as well as ongoing work by the regulatory agencies, Red Hill remediation roundtable work. With this month's update, I also wanted to kind of cover our current understanding with respect to the contamination within the groundwater aquifer, what we know, what we don't know. Take a look at groundwater flow. What happens to these contaminants in the aquifer itself, and all leading up to some of the kind of recent questions about restarting the wells that have been shut down from November 2021 in response to that fuel release at the Joint Base Pearl Harbor, where we actually saw fuel entering the aquifer itself that affected Red Hill Shaft. So this picture here shows we have 5 wells in the vicinity. Here's a Red Hill facility located here. We have 5 wells. The closest is Halava Shaft to the northwest. We also have 3 other wells located to the west. Halava wells, Aiea wells, and Aiea Gulch, and then further down to the south are Moanalua wells. So within this area, we know that groundwater is moving. How this groundwater is moving, how it supplies the wells is one of the paramount questions. Of all the 5 wells, Halava Shaft is the largest. It serves an area that spans from Moanalua all the way to Hawaii Kai, which is a service area that serves a population about 4 to 5 times higher than that of Joint Base Pearl Harbor. So any contamination at Halava Shaft has far-reaching impacts in terms of the area impacting in terms of pipeline and individuals served. So with respect to the groundwater flow direction here, the Navy has always continually said that the groundwater moves from the mountain to the ocean in this one singular direction. However, there have been what is called water level studies done in 2017 that shows that when we pump Halava Shaft, we actually observe the water levels on the Joint Base Pearl Harbor actually gets depressed. When that happens, one side is going up in terms of the water being pumped. The other side, the water level is going down. We're actually seeing that there is travel, or there's what is called connection between one part of the valley and the other side of the valley. So this data was actually repeated twice, and it actually did show that there is definite communication, or what is called groundwater can flow across the valley as well as down the valley itself. The Navy also did what is called a groundwater model. Within the model, they did something called a particle tracking, where they asked the model to take contamination and put it in one area, starting at the tanks itself, and where does it go based on different kinds of water levels, pumping conditions, and other types of environmental situations to see what happens or where these particles go. And what you're actually seeing is a number of different, scenarios and where those particles went, and that's what the colors represent. And clearly it shows that, particles from the tank, if those are contamination, can actually go towards Halava Shaft across the valley. It also can go to the west. And how far west, as it impacts our wells, is we took those same particle tracks and overlaid them as to the location of the Halava Shaft as well as the Boards wells over to the west. And you can see that some of these particles can come close to our Halava wells, our Aiea wells, and even close to our Kaamila well to the west. And so this serves as the basis for the shutdown of Halava wells as well as Aiea and Halava Shaft. Given that we know that that particular incident that happened in 2021 was actual fuel coming in direct contact with the aquifer itself. Recently, the Red Hill Water Alliance Initiative recently released a report, and the report, or this group, focused on looking at the current understanding or the science with respect to the nature and extent of the contamination within the Halava Valley area, as well as what is known about the contamination event itself, what we know about what is being found in the groundwater wells that the Navy is analyzing, And the report actually concluded that reopening of the wells would be at risk of encountering free product or fuel contamination or contaminated groundwater. And that additional work really needs to determine the nature and extent of the contamination, what happens to the fuel, what happens to the components, and to really take a look as to that, what is called fate and transport, which speaks to the contamination itself, where does it go, how fast, and what happens to it specifically. So if you look at in summary, the defueling was a good thing in terms of what happened at Red Hill, that 104.6 million gallons. But the work isn't done. That residual contamination still remains in the groundwater. What happens to it and how long it will be there still needs to be determined. So the current knowledge needs to be expanded in terms of understanding fully the nature and extent of the contamination. And certainly that data needs to be conclusive, absolute proof that proves that it's safe to restart any of our wells that have been shut down in this area. Otherwise, we can have a similar situation that happened in Joint Base Pearl Harbor, but on a much larger scale. And of course, there have been recent discussions about treatment. Treatment really has to go in hand with a standard so that we know what is the level of treatment we need to achieve. And certainly we need to treatment only as good as how much of a contamination we have, what type of contamination, and the volume that needs to be treated. All of these need to be available and go hand in hand with respect to making sure that the treatment goes and meets what is actually determined as the maximum contaminant level or the safe standards for drinking water. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Doug?
Aaron, I have a question about the model. So is it just that they didn't do a simulation with the Moana Lua well, or is there a reason why there's no water going south?
Well, the model has to do several things. And one of the issues that the Navy's model currently is that it doesn't do a really good job of really replicating what we know in nature. So one of the things we have in nature is we can measure water levels. And so the model has to be able to do that too. And currently it's not really able to do that very well. The second thing is that the model was focusing only on what's going to the northwest and to the west. It didn't really take a look at what was going towards Mauna Lua Valley. So that's another facet of the model that needs to be performed and studied.
Okay, the model just can't do south and just.
Yeah, right now the model wasn't designed to take a look at that. So it needs to be expanded to be able to do that as well.
And was it UH that developed it, or is it the Navy in-house?
All of these models were done by the Navy, and they were done as part of the 2015 Administrative Order on Consent. And that's being continued as part of what the regulatory agencies want the Navy to complete as part of the original requirement.
They use consultants.
Yeah.
They didn't do it themselves.
Brad, question.
Yeah, so going back, Erwin, the two things I want to check on are the treatment options, and then also I want to talk about the possibility of us turning our shafts that were previously shut down back on. You mentioned about absolute evidence in terms of ensuring that it's not safe. What does that look like?
Well, number one, it has to be, we need to understand the nature and extent of the contamination, where it is, how far it is, how deep it is, how wide it is, and have absolute definition of that extent of contamination, number one. Second of all, we need to have absolute understanding of the groundwater direction. Amidst all of the complexities in the subsurface, where does that groundwater go? How much of the contamination it's carrying? And what happens to that contamination as it's carrying it? Yeah.
Would that be achieved through monitoring wells or some other
You're going to need
device?
more monitoring wells. More monitoring wells provides you the data. And of course, you're going to need to have a groundwater model, not only models groundwater flow, but also what happens to the contamination itself, called fate and transport.
Okay.
And right now, those things are not well not well-defined and not ready yet.
I'm wondering if our message could be then more focused on these specific items,
Okay.
as far as our ask goes. I'm not saying that they're not already, but maybe that's something that I would want to kind of ask for more, specifically the things that you need to make that decision, I guess, or to consider that decision.
That's
The-
part of the work that, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, the other thing is on the treatment options. Can we hear a little bit more? Maybe not today, but maybe for successive months, maybe more options specifically. What are
Okay.
the options for treatment? How much do they cost? Advantages and disadvantages of those options.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay,
Kapua, give your hand up.
Yes, I do. Thank you. And just to tack on to what Brian has just asked, I think it would be great to have more info on treatment. I think one of my concerns about treatment is we don't know the full scope of the contamination. And so until we know exactly what we're dealing with, it's difficult to know what we need to do to treat it. And so I mean, as best as we can, that would be great. But I think we're gonna be chasing the 8 ball on for a while on that one. I guess
Yeah.
my question for you, Erwin, and thanks as always for the excellent update. But my question is, since we haven't pumped lava shaft since the contamination event, what, if anything, do we know about how the groundwater flow is in the aquifer and the fade and transport? Because I think so much of what we've understood about the way the flow and direction in the Pearl Harbor aquifer system works has been based on BWS pumping a certain amount from lava shafts
Right.
for a really, really long time. So where are we with that?
well, as of right now, we were collecting data from Halava Shaft when it was running. Shortly after we shut it off, we were able to collect some data, but we had some, the cable car broke. So we're not able to go in and collect any information. One of the things that we have to kind of keep in mind is that keeping Halava Shaft on also doesn't move the contamination across the valley, right? So spreading the contamination through pumping Halava Shaft is also a paramount concern. So keeping that in mind, it's kind of it's a difficult thing that we want to collect data. We've been collecting the data from basically a static condition, just off the top of the aquifer. But what does that mean in terms of when it's pumping? When we pump it, we're going to move that contamination as well. There's no monitor wells between where the tanks are and Halava Shaft for us to even understand that really fully. So having all of those problems or having all of those situations in there makes it a challenge to get that information.
And thank you. And I just want to be really clear. So I'm not suggesting that we should pump it. I actually agree that we shouldn't pump it until we have more information. I'm just wondering, given the state of the data, this is a further complicating factor, exactly as you pointed out. So
No, yeah, the point is well taken. Yeah, thanks.
I have a couple of questions. Can we go back to the slide that has the 2 red dashes across the valley floor, where you were talking about this 2017 and 18 water level changes? Can you just I'd heard it once before, like a while back, and then we hadn't really talked about it, and then it came up in a meeting a couple of weeks ago. But can you just explain to us kind of what the dynamics are that allow you to know through water level that there's and what happened to just help us as a board understand
Yeah, sure.
the dynamics?
So during this particular test, there were a number of different monitor wells where the water level was being measured. At the same time, different wells were turned on and off. So in one scenario, we turned on Halava Shaft and we shut off Red Hill Shaft. And we looked at what happened to the water levels. Then we did the opposite, shut off Halava Shaft and we turned on Red Hill Shaft. And in both of those, when you turn on Halava Shaft, you see Halava Shaft pumping and the water level goes down.
Goes down in Red Hill.
In the Red Hill area. Yeah, because we were monitoring the water levels in the monitor wells inside of that by the Red Hill tanks. There's a number of different monitor wells. And then the same thing was happening was when we turned on Red Hill shaft and we shut off Lava shaft, you could see that the water levels also went down, but not as much at Red Hill shaft. So those kinds of data really suggest that, especially Halava shaft, it has such a large contribution to changing groundwater flow direction or influencing groundwater flow direction. And when all of the like USGS and Water Commission and the various SMEs took a look at the data, the evidence was, I mean, the data was for the most part pretty convincing that there was communication going across the valley. And that the other thing is when that water level goes down on one side and you're pumping Halava shaft, if the water is coming out of Halava shaft, it could also be carrying any kind of contamination that's inside of that water across the valley.
So basically the water level is like is the indicator that the two
Yeah,
are related.
yes.
Okay.
There's communication or connectivity.
Yeah, connectivity across. And the next two slides, right, the particle tracking as well as the overlay, which is just kind of an enhanced particle tracking, that there were problems, right, with the data, and so like no one really accepted it. They said it was variables or
one of the problems with the data was, or the model itself was, that it wasn't able to replicate what were the water levels that was being observed in nature. However, the model is also a mathematical one. It essentially calculates based on certain parameters that inputted into the model itself. And that's how this particle track drawing was able to be generated. So while in one sense, we saw this particle track as replicating the water level survey, it at the same time wasn't able to reproduce what was actually being measured in nature. And so the comment came back was, while one part of the model makes sense, there's other parts of the model that didn't, and that the Navy really needs to go back and work on this model some more.
Sure. That was some of the things that we discussed during the Red Hill contemplation of both remediation, monitoring, and future studies. And I asked it's publicly available. I asked staff to just send a link to the board so you guys can take a look at it if you haven't seen it yet.
It's actually on our website too.
It's a pretty robust
Watersupply.com.
this discussion about like the number of monitoring wells that would be needed to really have a more robust picture of what's coming across the valley, as well as I think folks are looking at a number of different ways that we can utilize different technologies to better understand the region with respect to how the water moves, so as to, one day be prepared to have another conversation about what it might take to turn the lava back on.
Yeah. But there's another thing for the board to consider too. Recently, the Navy did come out with a press release about they did some baseline PFAS testing at a number of the monitor wells. I think it was around 21 different locations, and they found PFAS exceedances at least 4 locations, and then also found PFAS at other locations. So I think it's not only a petroleum hydrocarbon, but it may be other issues that we have to worry about. So more information is better before making major decisions like turning on Halava shaft or not. I'd just like to point out sometimes these things unfold over time. Our decisions of today, are they going to impact the generations of tomorrow? Because if you look on this map, you can see how many BWS wells are to the west there. We want to be concerned, are we moving contamination further westward, potentially closer, maybe impacting additional BWS wells in the future? Maybe not in my lifetime, but maybe in a generation to come.
Thank you, Ernie. Any further discussion? All right, thank you everyone for the detailed notes. Appreciate it. Moving on to item for information number 2, revision to the fiscal year 2024 capital improvement program budget amendment number 2. Chair recognizes Raylene Nakabayashi.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. So this is just for information. We processed budget amendment number 2, And the reason we wanted to bring this one, because it's a little different. We're not changing anything funding wise, but there was a title change. So I will walk through the details of the title change. So this did not change the description or the amount of funding appropriated for the project, but project item number 41. We came to you in August, I think, for budget amendment number 1. To add this Wilhelmina Rise project into our fiscal year 24 CIP. At that time, it was a project we still wanted to pursue. At the close of fiscal year 23, when we initially bid it out, we couldn't afford the project at the prices that it was coming in. So we went back to the drawing table to rework the project and then still wanted to pursue it in 24. So we have now done that redesign work and putting the project out to bid, but the redesign has also raised the spillway elevation of this reservoir from 811 feet to 815 feet.
It's a title change.
So yeah, just a title change. We wanted to make sure the board was aware. And so yes, this is, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ernie.
I know, I was just gonna say simply the project change, because rather than building a new tank near this existing tank, which is in that photo, the idea is to actually build the tank in the same footprint of
Within
that
a
tank.
Yep,
And it happens to be gonna be a little higher.
yes.
Hence the 10.
So yes, this was a project that supports our water master plan and is part of our 6-year CIP. It will replace the existing 0.43 million gallon reservoir with a 0.3 or 300,000 gallon reservoir. The redesign, like Ernie said, it's a new tank within the old tank's footprint. So that will increase the spillway elevation by about 4 feet. We also believe that this will increase the operating range and increase pressure in the system up there. So in summary, no changes to dollars. We just really wanted you folks to be aware. Thank you for approving the initial amendment to add this to our fiscal year 24 budget. We are proceeding, and we're proceeding with a new project that's called Wilhelmina 815 Reservoir Replacement. But thank you.
Any discussion? Maybe just a question, did engineering have any problems with the reduced capacity down to 0.3 mg?
No, it meets the needs of the community for that system, which is that system near the top of Manawani.
Okay. Well, really appreciate everybody's thoughtfulness and trying to figure out how to get these things a little cheaper.
Yeah, this was an approach to try to reduce the overall project cost, because the initial bid for a separate new tank was quite
Double, I think, what we thought.
way
it
over
was.
the budget.
I remember this was one of the ones that was way outside.
Way over,
what we
yeah.
thought.
So if the board recalls, I think we budgeted 8.5 million. It came in nearly double that when we bid it. This redesign will keep it at 8.5 million instead of a new tank at the site. We hope.
Yeah, we have yet to take it out to bid yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ray.
Okay, moving on to item number 3, status of groundwater levels at all index stations. Chair recognizes Barry. Look at Barry walking in right now. Barry was Sagala.
Sitting out there.
Okay.
I had my mask.
I figured he was watching on the Zoom.
Uh,
Hello, Barry.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. This is the low groundwater level report. We have 9 aquifer index stations in low groundwater for the month of November. So the 9 are Kaimuki, Beretania, Kalihi, Moanalua, Rose City, Waipahu, and Wailua. They're in caution status. Honolulu and Kaluanui are in alert. But the monthly production for November dropped to about 139 million gallons per day. So rainfall index for November, thankfully we got some good rains. There's 123% of normal with a 5-month moving average of 64. So, still averaging below normal, but on the 5-month, but November was higher. As of December, the drought monitor shows moderate drought conditions across most of Oahu. Mostly severe drought in Leeward. And they're still forecasting, the National Weather Service is still forecasting below normal precipitation through June of 2024. Well, most monitoring wells exhibited stable to somewhat decreasing head levels for the month of November. It was offset, some of that was offset by the degree of recent rains. So, so the pumpage here you can see in blue is continuing to decrease. It looks probably good going through the winter months. We're under 140 million gallons per day. If the rains keep up, we'll have some recharge, but we still have 9 that are in low groundwater. And that's my report, and open to any questions.
Any discussion?
Thank you very much.
Jerry, just one, how concerned should we be that we have 9 in low groundwater conditions?
Yeah, in 2003, we had about 9 in that range as well. That was a 6-year drought, at the end of a 6-year drought, and pretty severe El Nino at that time. I think Punaluu was in critical status at the time, and then we called a low groundwater condition. But that was in August of 2003. We have 9. I'm more concerned about what happens this coming summer. We'll continue to monitor the situation, but if you recall earlier this year, the spring through early summer, we had only a few index stations in low groundwater.
Mhm.
And just in that 4 or 5 month period, the drought was so severe that it kicked up to 9 in about 4 months. So yeah, that was pretty severe as in my experience in seeing the data. But I think we'll get through the summer, the winter. We should be very, watching and concerned about summer. So we're building our water shortage plans for Windward, Oahu. We updated the Metro water shortage plan triggers. We're building the conservation messaging around that, with coordination with Kathleen folks in communications. So we have the time to prep, and we'll see what the data shows, and we'll launch accordingly.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Okay, moving on, folks. Item number 4, last item. A water main repair report for October 2023 and November 2023. Chair recognizes Jason Ricardo. Jason.
Good afternoon,
Aloha.
Chair, board members. The following is the water main repair report for October and November. So October, there were 44 main breaks, which was higher than average, and November had 38 main breaks, which was also higher than average. That brings our fiscal year total to date of 212 main breaks. From the graph at the bottom, you can see how that is trending above the previous 4 years. Here's the list of main breaks for November, majority on the smaller diameter pipe. For leak detection, our leak detection team investigated 97 points of interest in October and 61 in November, for a year-to-date total of 306. That is trending well above the previous years. As far as leaks found, they found 111 leaks in October and 70 leaks in November, for a total of 405 to date, and that is also trending higher than previous years. Of the leaks that they found, 11 in the past 2 months were on main lines.
So Jason, when the 11 on main lines, when you find those leaks, are they reported with the main breaks?
Yes, they are.
So that's important to know that.
Correlation.
Yeah, that actually the leaks that are proactively located on the mains are classified as main break, but it hasn't reached a catastrophic main break condition where it's lifted the pavement. Or this is actually now, when the leak detection crew goes out there, they can actually now plan to do the work, dig the trench until they can expose the main and repair the leak before it destroys the road. So that's an important factor there also keep in mind in here.
Okay, that concludes my report. Are there any other questions?
With that trend being such at where it is, do we have concern with infrastructure and
It was a kind of unusual
it's unusual, this is
year.
unusual.
Yeah,
I think it's just still justifies our capital program,
Absolutely.
which is projected to be about $1.26 billion over the next 6 years. And a significant part is pipeline replacement, but also new source development.
I think some may be attributed to the weather because we had like a longer dry spell. That's when we typically have a higher number of breaks. So because the dry season lasted longer, we had higher than normal break activity for those months.
Would that be like settlements and ground movement and
Pumping, so more pumping,
higher
higher
pressure?
pressures for a more sustained period.
So in your opinion, this is an anomaly? Someone,
Yes, I think so. Because yeah, I don't recall it being that dry for that long before.
thank you.
Do you guys ever have any way to kind of guess based on the size of the pipe and the duration of the water moving, to guess how many gallons of water get wasted through these main breaks?
I believe we tried to estimate the water loss during main breaks, but Jason?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult because there's a lot of
Sure.
different variables that go into.
Sure. Okay, yeah, just trying to quantify it in all the different ways to, I mean, I think, certainly the 1% a year aspirational goal is really important, not for, well, for right now, but for certainly to set that into the future so that we have this constant mode of reaching into some of the most fragile parts of the infrastructure and changing that out as a practice.
The current process of prioritizing tries to weigh in the factors like age or condition, consequence of failure if it's high, main break history. We are going to be updating our 30-year water master plan, so I think those are going to be important discussions during that process. That was last accepted by the board. It's hard to believe, back in 2016. So it's actually a timely and to, I think, look at the issues of resources and climate change, the impacts of climate change.
Yeah.
Go ahead, or
Whoa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Jason. I was just wondering, because the leak detection on the mains are counted into the breaks, does that artificially look like our breaks are higher? I mean, is that part of what is pushing our number upward when that's actually you folks being proactive and, and finding things ahead of time before we can still fix them and before we have damage to the roads?
No, that actually doesn't, because even before we started with the satellite, we actually, the leak detection team would find breaks or leaks on the main lines. It's just now we're tracking them, so we kind of get a better idea of what is actually proactive and what's reactive.
Although your point though, Kapua, is that our leak detection team is actually getting more efficient.
Yes.
And with the new satellite passes, there are updated points of interest to be investigated and which are more current. So I think it's a little bit of both. Efficiency is improving, the POIs investigated, the leaks found on the main lines to, as efficiency goes up, I anticipate the main leaks will be actually going up too over time.
And so I do just want to commend Jason and his team, and mahalo you folks for the work that you're doing, and also mahalo the board, because I think our commitment to continuing with the pipe replacement is really important, and that's something that has drawn criticism, but this is exactly why it's necessary and important. So thank you to everybody for helping to make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, this brings us to the end of our regular board agenda today. If there's no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Jean and seconded by John. All those in favor say aye.
I.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, we stand adjourned.